and he put it on her, and then she went to the city. Third thing, rest comes at the Redeemer's feet. Rest comes under the Redeemer's wing, and watch this. Rest comes trusting the Redeemer's heart. He said, wait, you got to trust me. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to do everything. I will do everything that you ask, but it's going to take me some time. That's trust. Everybody say trust. And rest only comes when you begin to trust your Redeemer's heart. Now, that's a snapshot for us too, right? We have to trust the Redeemer's heart. It's all about motive. Everybody say motive. It's all about motive. It's all about, do you believe? Do you trust God is what God says he is? Do you trust that God's going to do what God's going to do, what God says he's going to do? Does Ruth trust what Boaz says he's going to do? Do you trust their motive? I'll be honest, as a pastor, the number one issue that I get when it comes to the big questions of God, it's not, I very rarely have somebody come in and say, I just don't know if there's a God or not. I'll be glad to talk to you about that. I very rarely get people come in and say, well, I know there's a God, I just don't know if he can handle this or not. I don't think I've ever had anybody ask me that. But you know what I do get all the time? Why? I know there's a God and I know he's capable, but why would he do this? Why would he allow this? Why would this go on? And I hear that question all the time. The number one question I get with regard to the big God question is a question of God's motives. Motives, why? When my boys were younger, I don't know, I've been thinking about my boys when they were real little. Noah and Nathan, we had a family friend. His name's Jonathan. He's a Christian illusionist. He was such a close friend, he just became known as Uncle John. And Uncle John was a Christian illusionist, and the boys were just infatuated by him. And when Noah was real little, I mean, bitty guy, just barely toddling around, Uncle John was his favorite person in the world. And John would get up there and he'd do card tricks and rope tricks and all this stuff. And one day he had done a rope trick where he had to cut a piece of rope, and he gave the excess piece of rope to Noah after the show. And he told Noah that was his magic rope. And Noah goes, I got magic rope. Magic rope. And he held onto that thing like kids hold on to teddy bears. I mean, we probably still have it around the house someplace. And when he was little, he'd get up in church after Sunday morning. He'd walk up to the top of the step and go, magic. With that rope. I mean, he was just all about that. And that rope was with us for forever. He loved it. Another thing we would do is we'd hang out in the living room and we would play games and Cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers. We played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, played all that kind of stuff. And one of his favorite things to do was he'd like to be in charge. He'd capture us. He'd put Mom or I in a chair, kitchen chair, and make us put our hands behind our back. And he would take that rope and he wouldn't tie it. He would just lay it over our arms because he didn't know how to tie. Couldn't even put his own shoes on. You know what I'm talking about? He just laid that rope over the top, and then you'd have to be like, oh, I can't get out. He's like, ha, 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 gotcha. And that was kind of fun and cute, but sometimes I hated that game because he would leave the room. And if you want to play the game, you had to wait for him to come back and go, no, let me go. And he'd go, all right. And he'd go around behind you, and he'd just pull that rope off. He'd go, oh, thank you for untying me. And you just play the game with him. I mean, I wasn't really stuck, but I love my son. And so I played the game. There is a God, and he has a son named Jesus. He made a perfect human race and put us in paradise, but we messed it all up. He had the right to destroy us and wipe us from creation, but because he loved us, he chose to go another route. And the God of the universe, who flung the stars into space, took up residence in a womb. And on Christmas 2,000 years ago, the God of creation put on a human suit. He was born into humanity. He didn't just come to us. He began to teach and to preach a message of love and forgiveness. He offered us a better way. And at the end of his ministry, what we gave him back was betrayal. At a prayer meeting, one of his own kissed him on the cheek and turned him in. They took him to the religious authorities, bound in chains. Pieces of his beard pulled from his face, punched and smacked, spit upon and blasphemed. He was humiliated in front of all he came to save. They took him across town to the politicians who didn't want anything to do with him, and they tried to get rid of him. But because they weren't willing to endure a riot, they decided to proceed with injustice. They had him flogged, beaten, scourged, a crown of thorns pressed into his brow, a purple robe and mocked as a fake king, whips stripped across his back, tearing flesh away so deeply it would expose the rib cage and bones, stood and lashed to a patibulum, a 90-pound railroad tie on his back, arms stretched out, pushed forward, falling down, log crushing his face, making it to the top of the hill, unbound. Roman soldiers lashed his arms to the same wood. They took a nail, one in his right hand, one in his left, and one for his 2 feet. And from the cross he said, "Father, forgive them, they know not what they do." And from the cross he said, looking at his mother, "My disciple, take care of her." And from the cross he cried, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And in the end, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. They took him down from the cross. The disciples ran in fear. They found a borrowed tomb and they stuck him in before the sun set on the Sabbath. In the quietness of that cold, dark grave, he sat for 1, 2, 3 days. And then the ground began to rumble. And a light shines from within. And angels appear. The stone rolls away and the heart begins to stir. His fingers twitch and back from the dead, the God of the universe, defeating hell, death, and the grave. He rises and he begins to teach and preach. And he tells all the disciples that this was the plan until one day he ascends, and at the right hand of the Father, the God of the universe now stands in a place where every time you offer a prayer and every time your heart hurts, every time you're in need, the God of the universe hears your prayer because the Son of the living God came as one of us, died in our place, and now stands victoriously at the right-hand side of God. We all know that story. But I have a question for you. I wonder, what held him to the cross? Do you think it was nails? I mean, isn't this the guy who could turn water into wine? Certainly he could turn nails into silly putty. Maybe he was terrified of the guards. No. Earlier this same weekend, they asked him his name. And when he responded, he knocked him down. What held him to the cross? Nothing. Nothing held him to the cross. He stayed on the cross because he chose to. He stayed on the cross because he loved you. He stayed on the cross because he wanted to. And I don't know why cancer is real. And I don't know why God hasn't already come back and wiped ISIS off the face of the earth. And I don't know why you suffer and you hurt and wrongs happen. But I do know that God has already answered the question of motive. Because the only thing that held him to the cross was his love for you. And so when you deal with the whys of this life, just know this: the God of the universe has nothing left to prove to you and I. Nothing. And you will not know rest until you begin to trust the Redeemer's heart. We may not know why, but he does. And he's already proved that his motives are pure.